What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? You are on the sidelines with the Sideline Guys for a very special MMA edition of the show. Today, I'm being joined by my guy, my brother, that is at this point internationally known, right? A man of all cultures, Sean Negron. How's it going, brother?
It's going well, bro. It's going well. Another week down, another hellscape gone. We are pushing through all of the hellscapes. Every time. Every week we get through another hellscape. I just get more and more excited that eventually these will eventually pass. And this was a nice card. I enjoyed this one a lot.
Hey, I'm glad you're excited because I look at it the opposite way. Every one of these that pass, it's like another lash on my soul, right? It's like another chip off the old block, just reminding me just how much better things could be, but will not be. But if we want to look at the bright side here, the best part about it is if you guys want to continue getting amazing content, you can follow us. And the best part about it is my guy Sean has some pretty interesting handles. Why don't you give them to him, Sean?
Wow. Well, nice little segue there. I like that. You can find me at Sean Negron 26 on Twitter and bsreports.org. That is my website, and it helps people who are trying to get into the sports industry, writing, content creating, editing, whatever the case may be, get involved. And whatever your favorite team is, your favorite player, your favorite sport, your favorite anything, reach out to me. I'll help you get there and get you started.
Fuck, man, I'm 2 weeks late. I ain't even put my 2 weeks in, and it's
I think
bad. Okay,
that's a very lenient 2 weeks there. I You joined the squad a couple months
couple
back,
couple months ago. You're right. It's like
but it's
four
all
fucking
good.
months at this point. It's like at this point it's reaching 4 fucking months. But one
When
day
I
I
when
will
I
return to
mentioned to
form.
you when I mentioned to you, "Hey, you think you'll have it done by October?" You looked at me like, "Damn, that was an insult."
It was
And I
because
was
it
like,
was, bro. It was.
"Damn, all right, I guess my bad." But here we are.
Yeah, bro.
Who would have
I
thought?
deserve I deserve some I deserve a real talking too. So it's gonna happen. It will
I'm
happen.
excited.
It's just a
It's
matter of
just
when. It's just a matter of when. It
That's right.
will
It's like your
happen.
favorite movie coming out or your favorite video game, and every time you think you're getting close, it's like, "Oh man, we pushed it back. We're making it better." That's the tweet we always get. So that's what I'm waiting. The hype is gonna be real. So I'm
Yes.
excited.
This is the Grand Theft Auto 6 of making your debut on BS Reports. So yes, I'm on my
That's right.
way. And who knows, I might even be coming with realistic cop tracking modifications this time around. But with all that being said, make sure you follow me at Negron MMA on Twitter as well as the TikTok and also on Instagram at Chris Negron underscore, but also make sure you're following the brand at OTS Media Co. on YouTube, OTS Media on all platforms. But with all that being said, it's time to get into the good stuff. It's time to get into why we're fucking here in the first place, right? So, the best part about it is we're going to be finishing the show covering everything from UFC Hellscape 3002, as mentioned by my amazing co host Sean. But there's also been a lot of different changes to the landscape of this very amazing world of MMA that we love so much. So it's only right that we talk about all these different things going on in the world of the UFC. And we can start right at the top with all the craziness that dropped in the last couple of weeks. I can't believe how much stuff there is to talk about. So we might as well start hammering these things down. USADA being let go. So, to make a long story short, Conor McGregor finally announced that he is actually within the testing pool. And from what I understand, to give a 100-foot perspective here, the UFC never had intentions of letting Conor McGregor fight before being in the pool for 6 months, according to the UFC. Now, how true that is, time will tell, right? If he fights before, what would that be? The month of April, right? So if he fights any time before May 1st, in my opinion, the UFC is just outright liars, which I'd love to see because that won't be new. But they claimed that there were intentions to never allow him until he got back in the pool. USADA felt like this was a whole public sham where they were trying to defend the integrity of anti-doping across the UFC by keeping him out of the cage, and it became an entire PR spectacle, right, between USADA, Conor, the UFC. Went back and forth for a little era there, and it ended with the UFC deciding to part ways with USADA. They have since changed to a different organization. I wish I had that on hand, Sean, if you could effort that for me. But I know that they are having a former FBI intelligence worker be the head of this program. So to give 100-foot perspective on all this, there still will be drug testing throughout the UFC. It will not just be commission testing, which I think was the best news that I've gotten out of this, but they will no longer be using the services of USADA. Now, an interesting angle to this while you still work on this. Um, a big part of why the UFC felt they needed to move on was they were pouring a lot of money into USADA so that they could update their practices, specifically as far as the process for the athletes to register their whereabouts and how they would determine how they would be tested. Apparently, USADA claims that all the money they've been getting has either been going through that or to testing the fighters, when the UFC is saying, hey, we've been giving you all this money in hopes that you can update these systems as well. And it's been business as usual. You haven't updated anything. And we've been pouring all this money into you guys for what? So I think on the surface, this seemed a little bit like a PR nightmare at first when I first saw the story. Like I'm like, oh, they're letting go of the reins. There's no drug testing anymore. But that's not the story at all. It's just a fallout with USADA, really. But Sean, please cut in here. Sorry for loud mouthing you guys for a minute and a half.
No, no, it's good. I actually like that you explained it really well. It's the new program is called Drug Free Sport International. That is what the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, a lot of huge organizations and sports use this, especially across America and across the world. So I think USADA was once the big, I guess, the number one, right? The big monopoly here. But drug free sport has come in and kind of taken over the last 10 years, and the UFC will now be joining them along with all the other major sports, and it shows that USADA's in some trouble there because I think USADA definitely made a lot of mistakes in this one because of how they decided to put out this statement or whatever you want to call it, the report that they were ending the relationship with the UFC when it wasn't that the UFC and USADA's contract was ending at the end of the year anyway, and that UFC had already told them that they were going to go in a different direction. And so the fact that USADA had decided to create this narrative with McGregor's name on it, knowing that it would be clicks and views, and it would make the UFC look bad, and it would, for a good second, make real people really start to believe that UFC was going to go back to the steroid era and oh, we're not testing anymore, and it put UFC in a bad light for a good 24 to 36 hours. So what USADA did was pretty childish for one, but it was very unprofessional. I'm not the most, like I'm not in the higher ups of the world or anything like that, but I can't see a way where any job that I've ever had would use my name to, throw me under the bus along with another company. It just doesn't make any sense. And Conor McGregor is the biggest name in mixed martial arts history and probably always will be. And to use him as a name to create this narrative about how the UFC is giving him the exception. It just makes it so much easier because USADA knows, like the rest of the MMA world knows, that Conor McGregor was once the biggest name. Not the biggest, not he is the biggest name. Was once the everyone's favorite fighter to everyone's most hated fighter, and now people are kind of wishy washy with him. He keeps telling people he's coming back. He's a very creative person. He's a little out there, but
It's a good word for it. Creative.
he yeah, yeah, he likes to say he's coming back. Oh, I'm coming back this day. Oh, I'm doing December. I'm doing this date. And USADA very well knew from the higher ups of the UFC, especially when they made the comment that UFC higher officials were the ones saying that he was coming back, and they clearly didn't say any of that, and they made it very clear in their legal statement as well.
Dana
It just
alluded
looked
to it though. Dana alluded to it. You can't act like he didn't.
sure,
And Conor McGregor
yes.
talks a lot of shit. So I don't think it was for no reason. Like I don't think
Well, no, no.
the
Well, the
reason
thing
why the
was,
USADA felt that way was completely out of bounds. But go ahead.
but yes, and I agree with you there. And I think that was the original plan, was for him to get back into the testing pool by April, May of this year, when the Ultimate Fighter was coming out. When he was on the Ultimate Fighter, the whole plan was to have him be ready for, first of all, it was supposed to be ready for the Boston card. That was the big thing. It was supposed to be the Boston card, where that was the end of the Ultimate Fighter finale. But then he didn't make USADA by then. So then they said, let's try to get it for the end of the year. And then that was the original plan. So I think, though, it was always the plan to get him in. But when he never made it to, submitting into the USADA pool, Dana only knew as much as whatever Connor and his team was saying. And Connor probably was telling him, yeah, I'm going to do it tomorrow. Yeah, I already filled out the paperwork. But, like, I think he was waiting, and I think at the same time, I bet UFC has something under their sleeve as well, where they knew that the relationship with USADA was going to end. They probably told Connor in a way, "Hey, listen, we're going to be leaving USADA anyway at the end of the year. Just wait it out. We'll have a whole new rule, all new system." But I think they kept that under wraps. Obviously, they're never going to say that publicly, but that's what I think happened. To kind of make it a win-win for UFC and Connor. But whatever USADA did, I understand how their feelings are hurt here. I get it, but still, the way they went about it was very, very unprofessional, and it makes them look so much worse. The fact that the UFC covers over 25% of their revenue, so that is a big, big loss there. And the fact that USADA has continued to lose more and more clients than gain, USADA's in some trouble in the coming years.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, I kind of thought USADA was out of the combat sports business before they signed with the UFC because a lot of people in boxing for a long time now have felt like they weren't really competent at doing their job. So yeah, it was very childish the way that the CEO reacted in his statement. I don't know if you read it. Super, like, I don't know, just trying really hard to come out in the correct light, which is a funny move for an organization that's about integrity, right? It seemed like he was trying everything he could do there uh, to clear his name before anything bad happened. It was very strange, but fuck you, Sada. We're glad you're gone in a lot of ways. I hope this new testing program is done correctly. I really hope that Connor doesn't become come back before May, because if he does, USADA should sue the UFC for all the shit they've been talking. Because literally, if they talked all that shit and then went on with a different company and then said fuck it, you could come back anyway. That's a lot of bullshit on the UFC side, and that's what they try to come after USADA for doing, right? So time will tell whether or not the UFC's integrity holds up. But as far as USADA, their record isn't clean, right? I don't feel bad for them, but crazy story, right? I didn't really expect it to go out that way. But I'm glad that they're still keeping the drug testing a part of the game, right? That's the most important thing. And if it wasn't for the New York State Commission, never forget this. If it wasn't for the New York State Commission, TJ Dillashaw would still be fine without any tainting factors to his record, because it's not USADA that caught him. It was the New York State Athletic Commission. So I could imagine that would have been a point of frustration for the UFC too, right? Like, you claim you're doing all these things, meanwhile, one of the biggest cases, right, as far as MMA fighters being caught doing anything, it wasn't even caught by you. So what are we paying you for?
But yeah, no, I agree with you. It's a good thing for the UFC to step away from USADA here. I love the direction that they're heading toward with drug free. They seem to, obviously, they are now the gold standard of what the testing and drug testing is all about, and I think that's what's most important here. And keeping this game as clean as possible is the most important. We could laugh about the days of Alistair Overeem and Brock Lesnar and all those fighters who come and gone through the um, testing pool when there wasn't steroid testing. It was just a written and verbal exam. Are you taking steroids? No, I'm not. All right, sounds good. Just take this and take this test and prove to us you're not taking steroids. All right, sounds great.
And take this supplement on the way out.
Yeah,
Shout out to the Pride Days.
yeah, exactly. So you know what? This is good for the game, and the UFC did say that less than 1% of their athletes are testing positive, and they have, I think they said, over 3,500 or something, or something like that. A lot of
That
athletes.
have been on roster. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
they've
has been
been
on
on the
the roster
roster. So
since they started.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's hey, listen, I'll take that number. It's a good number, and
I don't think it's a good number at all. If anything, I think there's a lot more people cheating that we don't know about. Trust me,
sure,
I do not think this
sure.
is a drug-free sport
No,
by any sense.
absolutely not. I think everyone's on it before, they go back into the pool, or not the pool, before they get back into a camp. I
Mm.
think everyone's always taking some sort of supplements because and that's fine. That's how I felt for me as a baseball fan. I always said that everyone's probably doing it until the drug testing's coming within a certain amount of months, or then, oh shit, I got to get clean now just to make the drug. Oh, okay. Like, I get it, there are random drug testing in, but I still feel random drug testing. I've seen a lot of situations where in random drug testing you kind of have an idea within like a good couple weeks in advance, like that this is gonna happen. So you kind of prepare yourself for it, and there are other drugs to take to help you uh, block off showing the results. There's so many ways to cheat it while also cheat. It's crazy, but regardless, it's a new move in the right direction, which the UFC just continues to build and continues to grow. And I'm excited for what happens next. I think this is kind of one of those big things that we talk about now, but kind of gets hush hush like when we get later on, when who knows what the new rules will be and how much of it will really play into what happens with Conor McGregor. I believe Conor McGregor is going to come back for UFC 299. I think he's coming back in April. So I don't know, but that's just my belief. I want to bring up something now with UFC 294. I think along with the crazy news between UFC and USADA that broke the MMA world last week, I want to bring up obviously everything that happened at 294. We're supposed to meet up this week to watch this card. It was a completely different card. The main event and co-main going into it, we had Islam versus Charles Oliveira and Paul Acosta versus Hamzat Shemaev. And then all of a sudden, we get news that in the fifth round of sparring, during the contender series, during the fifth round of sparring, Oliveira, right before he's supposed to, get to, uh, you know, calm it down, get ready for weight cutting, he cuts I think it was his eyebrow, right? If I remember correctly.
Mhm.
And he's now out. They couldn't, even with stitching it up, it's not going to be the same, and it's going to be a problem. And he's now out of the fight for the main event at 294. But as a UFC fan, as MMA fan, I think we were saved here with the fact how perfect of a replacement fighter you could get, and you're getting the rematch of Islam versus Alexander Volkanovski. I think that you could not ask for a better person to step up on 11 days' notice. So, but then it gets even worse for a second because then we find out Paulo Costa had staph and now he's out. And we were like, oh my God, this whole card is going to shit. Fucking 11 days before. What is going on right now? I can't believe this. But who would have thought we get this little 5-second video from Gilbert Burns showing a Kamaru Usman appearance getting in the cage, and all of a sudden we're like, wait a second, is is he trying to hint at something? And Dana White then comes out later that day saying Kamaru is replacing Paul Acosta, and we're having Hamzat Shemaev, the number 4 welterweight, Kamaru Usman, the number 1 welterweight in the world, both going up to middleweight with the fact that Adesanya is not fighting for a while, with Sean Strickland as the champion now, and they're gonna fight for the number one contender fight confirmed by Dana White, and also Kamaru Usman coming in on 11 days notice. So I want to hand this to you now with the main and co-main now official, brand new. This whole card just got a whole lot better. Pay-per-view buys are going to be through the roof. How do you feel about the replacements? Do you think that, with these betting odds that are coming out, they're not as close as you would think with the names that are there because of the 11 days notice? Do you still expect a hell of a UFC 294, or are we looking at something that we may be in for a very lopsided night?
It's a great question, man. I have no clue, right? Like we have no clue. I think given both the guys that stepped in, I think we're actually in store for better fights, if you ask me. Um, with Kamaru, I don't think he's someone that ever really gets out of shape. I mean, just fucking look at the guy, right? Like I don't think he's ever too far away from a training camp. Now, obviously, you need a training camp to fight someone like Hamzat, who has proven to have a fucking hellacious gas tank on top of just a dynamic skill set, right? But um, we've seen Kamaru use his cardio as a weapon against other opponents before, so I won't be surprised if actually that's the narrative for both of these replacement fighters, right? Volk too. Volk is someone that is known for having a gas tank and is always able to hit that pedal more than his opponents, right? So obviously it doesn't help them at all that this is their scenario. It 100% is a disadvantage. I want to make that very clear. But just given these two guys, I feel like it's a little bit less of a disadvantage than typically, but obviously, you don't like the circumstances as far as getting as competitive a fight as possible. But it adds another layer of intrigue, right? I mean, Michael Bisping has shown us anyone could shock the world. But if any of these guys win, it won't be an upset on that level, right? So, won't be surprised necessarily. But I think it's a narrative to watch out for, even as the fights play out, right? Because things could be going a little bit differently than we might have thought because of those factors.
Yeah, no, I agree. I With the names, it sounds incredible, but at the same time, I feel a little indifferent about it. Um, I love that the card has turned into what it turned into, especially with the fact that we're meeting up. We're having a nice group of people meet up. We're gonna have a great time. I love that the card is still, as perfect as you can make it. What bothers me is I hope that this Islam Volkanovski fight really does show out. This, round two, I call it. The second fight is as good as advertised here, because you never want to see a rematch or a second fight where a fight was so close, where it was so good that it needed to happen again. Champ versus champ, and you having the champ now come in on short notice. And I just don't want it to be where it's so clearly obvious that Volkanovski needed, a 6 week, an 8 week, a 10 week camp, not 11 days. And because if you lose here, right, Volkanovski, let's say he loses pretty unanimous, 49-46, 50-45, even or gets submitted. Volkanovski's dreams of coming up in the division are basically over. And you'll just see Volkanovski become, the featherweight goat, which is not something to sneeze at. He's going to be the greatest of all time in that division, but it kind of ends that dream for him for a while at least of coming back up to lightweight. So I love the fact that he's taken this fight, and it's incredible. I just don't want it to be something where we look back in a week from now and go, man, I wish he didn't take that fight because you need a lot of time to fight Islam. Islam is not something to sneeze at. Same thing with Kamaru and Hamzat here, where I'm a little bothered by the fact that Kamaru and Hamzat are getting this number one contender fight. For both of them are fighting in a division they've never fought in before. Like, who would have thought, right? Who would have thought a year ago, right? We would have the conversation that Kamaru Usman and Hamzat Shemaev are going to be the number one contender fight in a division that they've never fought in, the middleweight division, to fight the champion Sean Strickland. Who would have thought that? Nobody. Nobody. I would have been called crazy and sent in. That's how crazy this world and how the UFC is. So I'm not really the biggest fan of the fact that they're getting a number one contender fight, because it gives the it gives this feeling of all these guys who have been waiting, like someone like Dreykus or Jishkus, however you want to pronounce it. He gets his shot. He beats Robert Whitaker, and that was supposed to be the number one contender fight. Triscus wins. That was what they called it. Dana even confirmed it when that fight happened. That was the number one contender fight. Triscus wins in perfect fashion. It knocks him out. It's beautiful. But then Triscus has an injury. He or whatever he does have an injury. I don't know what happened between UFC and Dana and what Driscus's camp to the point where Sean Strickland comes in kind of late notice. Everyone's thinking Sean Strickland's going to get washed. Kind of adds a nice little red ruby to Adesanya's belt, and we can talk about it on the highlight reel. The whole UFC middleweight division flips upside down, where Sean Strickland wins. The whole division is now foaming at the mouth because it can move again. Adesanya is now taking off, like we're going to talk about in a second. The whole world is, like the whole middleweight division is now just adding players, and fighters are trying to jump in, and now you're getting Kamaru and Hamzat coming in here. But what happens what happens with Triscus, right? Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Triscus. I think he's a little on the overhyped train right now. Beating Robert Whitaker is nothing to sneeze at here, like I said before, but I think he still needs to prove here. And what happens with him now? Like he's like unheard of. He went from being the he's gonna get the shot to no, we're gonna bring two guys in from the welterweight division. They're the next guy. They're the next shot. So as much as I am excited for this Kamaru Usman fight too, to get back to the original point, um, I don't even know where to go with this. I think Kamaru is a decorated champion, and Hamzat has been one of the biggest hype pieces of all time, and he's proven it. What he did to Kevin Holland by ragdolling him for a minute and a half straight, it's just totally different levels. But Gilbert Burns kind of humbled him a little bit there, and I'm curious about how this fight will go down and how much are we going to be talking about? Oh man, this Kamaru is going to match up well against Sean. Oh, Hamzat's going to freaking what a great fight that's going to be against Sean. So I'm a little, I'm like 95% excited, 5% skeptical, if that makes sense. Maybe I'm overhyping the numbers there, but it is an exciting card regardless. The main card in general is awesome, but I am curious to see how 11 days notice for someone like Volkanovski and Usman, two legend Hall of Famer champions, how they do, in the biggest spot of them all on enemy territory this time. So we'll
Oof.
see.
Dude, you got me ready to run through the wall for the
This is
middleweight
what I do
division.
every week. This is what I do every week. If you just give me the UFC theme music with, their little UFC countdown and just have me narrate, dude, I will have everyone running through the wall. That's what I do. I hype up fights and expectations to the point where I always pick the loser, or and then I bet the loser. It just ends up always happening to me. So, you
Selling
know what?
yourself a dream. That's how you know you that's
Yeah.
how you know you fucking made it when you could sell yourself a dream, dude. I love it. And yeah, I couldn't
Exactly.
agree with you more. It's such a strange situation, but given the circumstance, it makes perfect sense, right? Like I feel like they could have went a number of different directions. I mean, Bo Nickel would have been an amazing one, right? But they could have went so many different directions with this, and I'm sure it would have been fine, right? But this matchup is a matchup we already thought about, right? It's something that's already been on our mind, considering Hamza was up for number one contendership status after Kamaru lost the belt. And obviously got the rematch, came short again. It kind of felt like that was inevitable. And then unfortunately, Hamza forced to move up. And then somehow we still get the fucking fight, which I love. I love that narrative for Kamaru too, right? He gets to get another belt potentially in another weight class if all of this works out for him. And he mentioned before, if Adesanya's at 185, I don't want anything to do with it. And Adesanya just announced he's taking a break. So the timing is all there for someone who's later on in their career, right? I would imagine this is would be his final push, right, at a title, no matter what division it is. So I love that story for him. Obviously, it's not fucking ideal. You got to fight the fucking uh, the hammer of all hammers, right, to get it done. But I know he's not scared of this. So I mean, we'll get deeper into this on our next episode as well, with full breakdowns on that. So keep an eye out for our UFC 294 preview show. But something that I think is really important to mention as well, because obviously Volkanovski's jumping in on short notice too. That leaves a hole, right, for UFC 297, which is taking place in Canada. I believe it's in Toronto. Um, what do you think the plan is there? Obviously, the hope is, and Volkanovski mentioned today on Ariel show, that the hope is to try, no matter what goes on, to still make that date and still fight Ilya Taporia. Obviously, a lot needs to fucking go right for that to work out. But if it doesn't, is there anything that sticks out to you as far as answers for this card in Canada?
I don't think I think it's all kind of talk right now, but I think this card will be. I don't think this fight will happen. To be honest with you, I don't. I think with UFC 300 around the corner, I think the push to have that, because whatever happens with Volkanovski here, it's short notice fight 294. Best case scenario, he wins this fight. I still expect, regardless, he's going to be put through a brawl. I don't expect his face to get completely beat up, or he's not fighting a boxer or a stand up or anybody. That's Islam's level, who's just a extremely extremely good wrestler, grappler. I expect this to be a different type of fight. So 297 is still definitely there. I just don't know if Volkanovski is going to want to, after taking a short notice fight, and it's if in case he does lose, to now kind of rush into another camp against Ilya and put the other belt on the line. He's going for the lightweight belt. It's short notice, but I don't know if he's going to want to put his featherweight belt on the line as well, so quickly. So I don't know what they're going to want to do there. There's still a lot of fights that you can make happen for that card. I still firmly believe that if Volkanovski doesn't do it, that you have to make Max Holloway versus Ilya for the interim belt. I would love that so much if Holloway gets one final crack at leaving the number one contender. I don't even know what you want to call it, the dungeon of never escaping the number one contendership. Like, he's always gonna be the number one contender. As much as they want to, put everyone around him to give Volkanovski a different face, he's just been stuck in this dungeon of just sitting there as a number one contender, watching all these people fight in front of him that he's beaten already. So Ilya, I wanted, and I said this many, many, many episodes before, that when Ilya won his last fight, I wanted him to go right into Max Holloway. That is the test right there of him versus Max Holloway. I would love nothing more than that fight. But I think, with your face, especially your reaction there, I don't think you agree with me very much so, but I think Ilya versus Max is what they should do for the interim UFC featherweight championship, and I don't want Volkanovski to be rushed in case something bad happens on Saturday and Volkanovski loses again, especially if he loses in easier than the first fight fashion. If that makes any sense.
Hey, I don't mind the matchup too much. I'm just not sure how much Max Holloway's wife would be down with anyone going right through Max Holloway. But with all that being said,
This
hands
guy.
down, as far as that matchup goes, it'll be one hell of a fucking fight, right? Like, that's a great consolation prize. I said prize. Canada loves themselves some Max Holloway, and I'm sure he loves Canada back. So that's a fucking awesome replacement fight. And once again, just the embarrassment of riches. Think about what happens in boxing if someone falls out and the replacement they get versus the UFC. It just feels like they've got unlimited cards to shuffle back into the deck. It's fucking incredible, to be honest, that we could even consider a fight of that caliber. And who knows? There could be other things on the radar, right? Maybe Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway rematch, right? That'll be awesome to
I
throw
don't
over
like
there
that
in
at all.
Canada. Who
I do
knows?
not like it.
Both of them need a fight, right? Who knows? But
Yes.
there's a whole lot of different options there. I know that was a super random one, but Canada,
No.
you'll be fine. If anything, this will be a better card no matter what than you guys have gotten in a while. So
You can add to that, dude, and this is what I forgot to mention for 294 here, is that Gamrot was should have. I felt this was a fight. This card was made in the last 2 weeks. Was made for the fans of getting a big name like Kamar Usman and Volkanovski to replace. You could have gone with with Gamrot to be the replacement there because he's already been training. He's the replacement. He's already the backup fighter. Could have just gotten him. He's already in a full camp in this one. And then you could have had Dreykus because I know he's healthy by now, and he could have been a replacement. You could have had the two not real number one contenders, but the fact that Gamrot was ready for this fight, you could have had that. But you could have Dustin Poirier fight Gamrot at 297. You can make that fight if you really wanted to, because Poirier needs to fight someone new, and I think Poirier's literally got a string left to his lightweight dreams. I think he's got very, very minimal chance here to get back to a number one contender spot. He's going to have to wait a while with the fact of Oliveira and Gaethje in front of him, and who the hell knows how that'll turn out. And with Volkanovski already leapfrogging all three of them, who the hell knows when Poirier will really get a shot. And Gamrot there. It's like I just keep adding names here.
Yeah.
So who the hell knows? So I think for Poirier, I think I would be asking for Gamrot as quickly as possible. And that's a
You
fight you
think
should
so?
definitely make.
I think anybody
Absolutely.
wants to fight Camrot, dude.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's a name you could do. Getting Dreykus a fight in there. Like 297, it might not be the most championship type fight card out there, but I think there's still a lot of great fights that you could do. A Dreykus versus Paul Acosta type fight. Who the hell know? I'm just spitballing as we're going here.
Love
So
it.
you can make these type of big fights for 297, and then maybe one of those guys are fighting at UFC 300, or because I believe 298 and 299 are going to be slowed down a little bit, because I believe UFC 300 is going to have 3 to 4 title fights, because I think everyone and their mama is going to fight at that card. That's going to be the biggest selling pay-per-view. It's going to be the biggest one of them all, and I think that's going to be huge. I think everyone's going to try to fight, especially Volkanovski. If John Jones doesn't want to retire, him, anyone. I can go all day, but I just think it's going to be at least 3 to 4 title fights, and then this is 297 is probably the cutoff
Hmm.
of people who are trying to fight on that card. So
Yeah,
with that coming, and International Fight Week right after that, it's there's kind of building here towards the future, and I believe there's a lot of fighters kind of just sitting with nowhere to go, and you gotta make fights.
for sure, man. Holy heck! It's always exciting to imagine, right? The mental masturbation, trying to figure out what's going to happen in the future. But before we know it, we'll be there, and we will know. And of course, we will have the opportunity to cover every damn second of it with this crazy sport. So keep
Well,
locked in with the OTS Sideline Guys MMA show, and we will keep giving you all that news as it floods in. Sean, what were you about to say?
I was gonna ask you one final thing here before we move toward this recap,
Yes, sir.
and that is, we've said it a couple times in the last 5 minutes. But how do you feel with the fact of Adesanya taking time off now? Saying on the radio, he kind of sounded like he wasn't going to retire, but he clearly doesn't want to fight anytime soon. It could be a year where we hear from him, maybe 8 months, 10 months. I think his name could be out of the running for UFC 300 with the fact that he's no longer a champion and doesn't want to fight. So it does make the seem that the Duplessis versus Adesanya fight will never happen. Even though that was the most hyped thing 4 months ago. How are you feeling with the fact that Adesanya is now taking time off, which sounds like such a weird thing to say with the fact that he used to fight 3, 4 times a year?
Yeah, man, one of the most active guys in the sport. So I don't think this is going to be as long as a hiatus as most would. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up on UFC 300. I think a hiatus for him is a work year for everyone else. Just think about the Hall of Fame career he sped run, right? Like he literally sped run his way through a dominant title reign, and then obviously had this whole side quest of getting the belt and losing it back. So I don't mind it at all for his career. I think obviously start taking a big break at age 34 is never really a good idea, right? For any athlete. You're taking away a little bit off your prime, but at the same time, whatever you don't have as far as athletic talent that you once had, you gain in wisdom and smarts, right? So um really excited to see him come back rejuvenated, man, because clearly something was a little off there. And obviously, we don't want to see him come back to that form, right? So I think it's all going to be exciting stuff and more compelling things to look forward to eventually once he does come back. But I don't mind it, man. I don't know. I feel like he didn't have that planned out before the fight. I think if that fight went differently, I probably don't see him doing this. And who knows? Maybe he knew he needed this more than ever, right? So things happen for a reason. Just wishing all the best to Adesanya. I know this must be a hard time for him. But with all that being said, interesting that you went that way because as you were about to ask me the question, it kind of went south. So you know what? I'm going to ask you the question that I thought you were going to ask me, Sean. God damn it, we mentioned him a couple of times. If I'm Mateus Gamrot, am I upset? Right? Like I'm the backup fighter. I've been told I'm going to show up on the day of to make weight and get paid for it so that I can serve as the backup fighter. And once he fell out, I was not the motherfucking replacement fighter. Sean, what the fuck? How do you feel if you're Mateus Gamrot?
Yeah, obviously, I think I'm upset with the fact that I'm not the replacement fighter here. I am literally being sent into Abu Dhabi to sit there and be a replacement fighter. All of a sudden, the person who I'm replacing is out of the fight. Okay, I'm next in line. I'm literally flying in. Why? Why is this guy coming in to fight? Wait a second. What? But at the same time, I think you also have to look at it where Gamrot isn't the biggest name out there, and you only go into Abu Dhabi once a year, and it's like Madison Square Garden, right? If we were in Madison Square Garden a month from now, and something happened here, and let's say Islam was the main event at Madison Square Garden, you would not have Gamrot headline Madison Square Garden. Just you just don't do it. So I think he has to know that in the business standpoint. In the fighting MMA world, yes, it's a low blow. That sucks. It really does. But he hasn't done anything to his personal or, like his in out of the octagon life that makes him this huge fan favorite friendly face of man. I can't wait to see Gamrot fight. I think when you hear the announcement Gamrot's fighting, you're like, oh, all right, hey, I like that because I like when Gamrot fights. It's not like, bro, Gamrot's fighting in November. You don't get that. You don't get that hype. So I think the fact that you're going to Abu Dhabi once, you know, COVID happened to Abu Dhabi every month. It was a big draw. It was the only place in the world that was letting live and sporting events actually even happen. So now it's only happening once a year. The amount of money that Abu Dhabi is throwing to having an incredible event, like every time you go to Abu Dhabi now, you have to have two minimum two great fights, like minimum. That's like the prequel to the Garden, which is why they're having it in October. The Garden's in November. I think that's how it's always going to be for the next couple years. They're going to probably backpack each other and flip flop. So you cannot have Gamrot being the main event in Abu Dhabi. It can't happen. Like unless Gamrot headlines another two main events and maybe even in the Hellscape, maybe. But it just especially the way he want like it just there's just no way you could give him the main event and arguably one of the biggest cards in locations wise of the entire year. So that's why you go with a way bigger name in Volkanovski on 11 days notice and a Kamar Usman on instead of Dreykus on 11 days notice, assuming Dreykus is fully healthy. But that's why you do this. You're trying to save it. You're trying to make it easier for the UAE. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to save face and make the card still as big as a pay per view buy as possible. They since they announced it, all they've been doing is hyping on the YouTube and every interview up the wazoo for both of those fighters. I could they're probably on an interview right now. Like I could probably find them and doing a live right now. Like that's how much they've been going crazy with this whole thing. And you can't have Gamrot headlining UFC 294. You just can't do it.
So I agree with you because of the circumstances. As far as the meritocracy of the sport, like it's hilarious how correct you are and how much I hate it. Like because you're 100% right. Like no matter what, because of his status and who he is, he would never get this opportunity. But should that be the fucking case? Like let's say imagine
It
this
should
world,
never
right?
be
Hear
the
me out
case.
here. Hear me out here.
Go ahead.
Imagine we end up in the NFL playoffs today, right? And for whatever reason, right? We're not exactly sure why. But for whatever reason, um the fucking this is a terrible example, but I'm gonna use it anyway. For whatever
See what you
reason,
got.
the 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 49ers are unable to play, right? The 49ers as a team cannot show up to the playoffs, right? They cannot compete as a
Okay.
team. And then the nearest team that they're like, you know what, actually, um, the Rams won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Let's put them right back in the playoffs, even though they didn't make the playoffs. Obviously this is a terrible analogy given what I just said, but it just speaks to the level of like craziness that is this sport that we follow that isn't a sport, right? This is sport entertainment. And no
Sure.
matter what, they're going to always prioritize the entertainment side of things, regardless of how much we think the cogs of meritocracy should continue to move this ship forward. But goddamn, Sean, we went too long before touching on this UFC Hellscape show. So I'm really excited to hop right into all the results and all the findings from what was a terrible week for me, at least in picks.
Yeah,
But
I needed
UFC
this to start.
Hellscape 3002, Sodiq Yussuf versus Edson Barboza. I think it's only right that we just start with the main event, right? We work our way backwards on this show.
But we're going through each one, huh?
Oh yeah, we're going through each one, brother. Do you not? I mean,
Ooh.
it doesn't have to be in depth, but I think it's only right. I mean, I'll start with the sadness, right? I'll swallow the pills, right? I made you swallow a
Do it.
couple horse pills last week. I picked Sadiq Yusuf here, and I don't feel bad about it at all.
Yeah, me too.
He almost got Barboza out of there in the first. God damn it! And that was a crazy round. I don't know how the hell Barboza survived. But from that point on, man, the dude's a fucking dog, man. Just came back roaring in the second. I thought personally, now hear me out, please don't air me out. I thought that Sadiq Yusuf won round 2 and 4 when I was watching it initially, in addition to round one. And I know this sounds crazy. Um, but no, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I thought Sadiq Yusuf deserved a 10-8 in round one, which on two cards he got. And then I thought that he won round two. Now, obviously, Barboza 3-4-5 was very clear. If you add up all those scores the way I just laid it out, I scored it a draw personally. But that's obviously not what happened here. This ends up being a huge comeback story for Edson Barboza, much deserved, in my opinion, as far as how he performed. Well, obviously, was able to rock rock Sadiq Yusuf with that signature Barboza spinning wheel kick, right? Just always landing that thing somehow on everyone he fights, and was able to turn the tide around from that point on, just with basic fundamentals, right? Pumping out your jab and just staying in Sadiq Yusuf's face, who I thought after that first round never quite looked like himself again. Am I crazy for feeling that way?
No, not at all. I actually had it exactly the same way you did. I thought at the end of the night it was going to be a draw because I thought Yusuf had the 10-8 in the first round, and I thought he won that second round. And so I thought he kind of had it in the bag, but then you saw Barboza start to turn it around. And I thought at the end of it all, okay, Barboza won 3, 4, and 5. You know, depending on if they're going to really give a 10-8 in that first round, I still think it's a draw or Barboza wins 48-47. But, you know, the way that they had the judges' scorecards, how they had it 4 rounds to 1 on 2 scorecards, and then I think they had it 4 rounds to 1 for 1 or 2 scorecards, something like that, and then, 3 rounds to 2 on the other with the 10-8. So, it was very, very different than what I had it 47-47. I just thought that that's the I think whatever the numbers would have been.
Yeah.
Um, that's how I had it, but I was completely fine with the fact that Barboza won that fight. I thought he had completely come back and, by, like, the last 2 minutes of round 2, he was starting to really turn it on, and he was starting to come back into this fight, and Obviously, round three with his own knockdown of his own, and then 4 and 5, he was clearly the different fighter. He took all the wind out of Yusuf Sales, and what an incredible fight, man! That
Dude.
shows resilience by Barboza, who even said in his post fight, I didn't even know where I was. I thought I was playing with the kids, and that's just how crazy this sport really is, where you have no idea where you are. But your body goes into this, survival recovery mode, and all of a sudden you snap back into reality. Shout out Eminem, and
Ooh.
you're just you just come back, and then as a veteran in this game, like what I'm down. Let's say 2 rounds to 0 right here. I need to win the rest of this fight. And Barboza did just that. And he's a legendary name in this game. And what an incredible fight by him. I love that fight, man. That was one of my favorite fights of the last couple months, and especially one of my favorite Hellscape fights. If
Mhm.
that makes any sense, if that means anything in this world, um, that was one of
Holy
my
shit.
favorites so far this year.
I just gotta mention this, man. That fucking same time counter where Barboza tried that same Tim Means knee, right? That fuck you
Yeah,
knee from against the fence that I even as it landed in that Tim Means fight, I'm like, oh, like it's so dicey to throw a same time counter knee no matter where you are, but especially against the fence where if you're getting hit, especially anywhere on your face or chest, you're probably immediately going to be falling over, right? Just throwing your weight out there. The dude threw a fucking same time counter as Sadiq was already putting it on him and just got cracked with a brutal right hook. I don't know how the fuck he survived that, bro. That
me
shot
neither.
was disgusting, bro. And to be able to find your wits about yourself and then after that, if you think about it, let's be honest here, even though it was a sustained ass beating in round 1, like 10-9, 10-8, no matter how you slice it, in my opinion. I'm still mad at you, uh, whoever that was. I think it was Mike Bell, for getting that
Chris Lee.
incorrectly. Oh, excuse me, Chris Lee, who's been coming under fire lately. So damn it, Chris Lee, get it together. But if you look back at round 3, you could almost argue if any of those guys had more time, the only person that would have probably got the finish was Barboza. If he had like 10 more seconds in that round, in my opinion, that fight was over. So credit to
Yep.
Yusuf as well for being able to recoup and then make it competitive after that, right? It's not like it was a blowout rounds 4 and 5, despite how many
No,
people tend to unanimously agree that Barboza won those rounds. It was still close rounds. So just a
definitely.
fucking amazing fight. Junkyard dog. Shout out to Edson. And I'm mad at both of us, right? None of us have picked him up. He's fought twice since we started doing Dynasty on this show. And somehow the old grizzled vets, man, they just fly under the radar in these competitions. I might having to start rethinking the way I pick my Dynasty League, man.
Yeah, it sucks to watch that. It sucks when you lose the pick, right? And then you look at Dynasty and you go, "Man, he went through all of us, like all the picks." And it's just like, "What were we doing? Like what were we talking about that night? How did we not think the way we were thinking then? Like what happened?" So, yeah, but you know I feel like Barboza will be back within 3 months from now, and I might have to steal him from you because he seems to have some nice little resurgence here. So I like it. Great fight. I love that. Even Yusuf said that he's been watching him since a kid. I agree with him completely. I've been watching Barboza since first started watching UFC, and um, man, he's so fun to watch. He's got so many different levels to his game,
Mhm.
and he's 37. He's 37 and young, so that's how I'm looking at it. And I can't wait to see what he does next. And
Dude,
same thing with Yusuf too, man.
phenomenal
Not
fight.
taking anything away from him, man. That dude is a dog. He was another one where, well, maybe it wasn't as bad as Barboza in the first round, but Yusuf got clapped, and I thought he was on the verge. He was trying to find the cage. He was trying to find a way to stand. I thought he was in trouble, and the way he got back into it, he found wherever he was, and he got himself back into having a great fight because even the announcer said going into round 5 that whoever wins this round is probably the winner because that's how close the fight ended up becoming. And Barboza won that fifth round, I think, in every scorecard, including mine. And we live to talk about it. So I can't wait to see both of these two guys fight again. It was a great fight, and I'm very excited for both of their careers.
Heck yeah, that was the definition of a prospect loss there for Yusuf. I don't doubt that he comes back. I don't
Yep.
mind having him on my dynasty team. I know he's going to be back, and I feel bad for whoever he fights next because it's going to be one hell of a fucking fight to say the least. Because, man, round one, Sadiq Yusuf puts it on, folks. The damage that he put on him in round one that he had to wear throughout the rest of that fight fucking I mean, say what you want about his performance and being able to fight Sadiq Yusuf. If you take a snapshot, right, in my opinion, and this may be a hot take, but hear me out here. You take a snapshot of their faces at the end of the fight. You could say Edson Barboza won won the battle, but Sadiq Yusuf might have been in for winning the war, right? I love looking at these 5 round fights as if in some mythical world we get a version where it's a fight to the end, and at that point you could argue Sadiq Yusuf was better, at least as far as physical damage for the wear. But obviously that world doesn't exist. The records move on, and we will move on just like that. The co-main event, Jennifer Maya, Vivi Araujo. We were completely wrong about this one too, man. Didn't expect this outcome at all.
I
At the
did.
same time, what?
I did.
How? You
I
didn't pick
I
her?
I said it going into the card. I didn't want to pick Maya, but I didn't trust Arujo yet, or Aruja, whatever it is.
Araujo.
I don't
Araujo. Come
care.
on, bro.
That's how
Hey.
disappointed I am. All right.
Okay.
I don't like. Okay, I'm not gonna say I don't like Jennifer Maya.
I was
I'm
about to
not a
say what?
fan of Jennifer Maya fighting wise. I said this going into the preview show last week that
So
I
rude.
just never been sold on Jennifer Maya. Every time I go to believe, she just rips my heart out, and I just go, you know what, enough. And this time I saw you pick Maya first, and I just didn't believe in Vivian enough to go against you, and I should have because I was watching that fight. I'm cheering for Vivian the whole time, and then I look back at the doc and I go, oh, I picked. I know I picked Maya just to make sure I didn't lose. A fight I didn't need to lose. So I'm so disappointed with myself because I wanted Vivian to win. But you know what? It is a little. I'll ask you actually. I'll ask you.
Okay. Okay.
Did you find that this fight was a debatable? Did you think it should have been scored the other way, or were you glad with how the judges scored this one?
Um, I'm gonna be honest. I think there was a little bit of a case for it to go either way, but I wasn't mad with the decision. I thought it was a close fight, but I thought ultimately the clearest round was won by Araujo. So you kind of got to give it to her, right?
Yeah, no, I feel that. I felt obviously round two was Arujo, especially with I think it was over like 4 minutes
Time
of
control,
control
yeah.
time,
Which I
and
didn't.
then
That was something I really didn't think, as far as how the fight would play out. The fact that she was able to keep that dominant control and then not be able to get up. That was really surprising for me.
yeah, that I see where you're coming from there. It was the fact of for me round one, I felt Maya was more involved, more dominant in a way where they both were landing, but I felt Maya was throwing more, was landing more. The significant strikes was clearly more, and then even in the third round, I felt Maya was doing a lot more. I just think that Vivian was connecting on a more constant pace, but still very, very limited. But both of them were taking each other down. They both had control time. I think the fact that Vivian had more control time in round three is the reason that they gave her round three. Because I think Vivian. I don't know how they scored this, but I don't know if they gave Maya the first round and then Vivian won the last two. But I
Must
think
have
that's
been.
how
Yeah.
they did it. So it was I felt Maya won the first round, and at the end of round three, like I felt the tides change, and I was like, I guess you got to give it to Vivian here. But I went back to look at the stat sheet, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I think Maya was the one doing more,
Mhm.
but she was technically in the stat sheet, but it just watching it, you could tell where Vivian was the one who was kind of constantly controlling that third round. So I get it.
Mhm. Dude, I love the analysis. I don't really got much to add, but obviously not the toughest pill to swallow for both of us, but a shitty way for both of us to end off the night, right? Like if we would have
Bro,
done
yeah,
better on these, we would have had an outstanding record on the night. But before that, Jonathan Martinez, Adrian Yanez, I think we were fucking spot on with how we called this one. Shout out to your pick, getting both of those guys. Not a bad look at all, in my opinion. But Just honestly, if you ask me, a little bit of a disappointing performance from Adrian Yanez. I mean, you know what this guy is coming to do, right? You know what you want to do, right? I'm sure, and that's what got him in trouble, right? Trying to focus on what he wants to do. But you know what your opponent wants to do, and he just fell right into it over and over again, man. He didn't really adjust
Crazy.
with how heavy he was on his lead leg. And once it started getting bad, man, it was rough to watch at certain points. Shout out to Factory X, man. Mark Montoya, another warrior of an MMA coach, someone who prayers up. I hope I haven't really heard an update on this, but from what I understand, he's battling cancer as we speak and just out here willing dudes to victories. Amazing performance from Jonathan Martinez. Obviously, he's the one that went out there and made it happen, but just felt, in my opinion, a little bit let down by Yanez's performance, and I'm sure he wishes he could get that one back. But just a tough matchup, and it kind of played out the way we kind of thought it would, right?
Yeah, definitely. I was glad that we both picked Martinez here. I think we just felt that it was going to be this sort of fight. I just didn't expect it to be this like obvious. I thought Giannis was going to come in, especially with Martinez. Like you already know, he's already got a knockout or a TKO, so to speak, from leg kicks, and there's not many in the world that can do that. And now I think he's the second person. Yes, he is the second person ever to have multiple TKOs via leg kicks, and the other person was Edson Barboza in the main event. So it just goes to show, like you kind of knew the game plan, and it just I felt like after like the 15th kick to the leg, I started feeling the kicks. Like
Mhm,
we were just sitting there watching it happen, and you just get to this point now where you're just feeling bad for a certain fighter, and I hate when that happens. When you're just now
mhm,
feeling bad for a fighter, and you're looking at the clock. You're kind of looking for the round to end as much as quickly and as much in the desire as the fighter who's getting his ass kicked is. You're just like, no, buddy, it's okay. 80 seconds, man. You could do it. Come on, you could do it, buddy. Come on. And you're waiting for it, especially in that fight. Like it is as clear as day for anyone who is just starting to watch the UFC. When you're watching that fight, you're kind of just waiting for the leg kick, and it's coming. You
mhm,
know it's coming. Every time it came, you just hear this clap. You just hear it. It's so loud, and man, was that it was rough. That's rough because I like Giannis a lot. That's why I picked him with my second overall pick in the dynasty because I still think both these two guys are dogs, and I think this is kind of a big wake up call to Giannis here. So I think he's got to come back here. That is as brutal as it gets in a way to lose. Granted, thank God it's only in front of 50 people, so who cares? But you got to come back from this, and I'm excited to have him still in Dynasty. A humongous win for Jonathan Martinez. I loved it. I love seeing stuff like that. I love this guy, and I can't wait for his next fight as well.
great shouts all around. Can't wait for both of these guys to bounce back. But I just gotta mention, dude. I have to before we move on. No matter who the fuck Jonathan Martinez fights next, like this dude, this dude's fucking coming, right? Might not be the flashiest style, might not be the most exciting for most fans, but this guy's a fucking problem for this division, and I love once again the slow build. He's one of those guys that first time you might have saw him, you might not have screamed championship potential, right? But as he continued to grow and develop, just every time he goes out there, the dude looks like a more honed, a more sharpened version than last time, and he just keeps getting better. So shout out to Factory X, man. Love to see these
How
fighters actualize their potential. What was that, Sean?
how afraid would you be if you got the call that you were fighting him next? How
Oof.
afraid would you be for your legs? Well, obviously for
Oof.
everything else, but realistically, right now, with the fact that he has now two TKOs via leg kicks, how do you even like at the gym? I think I would be asking every
Oof.
single person that came into the gym to kick my legs at least 15 times
Oh hell
before
no.
you left for the night,
Oh
so
no,
I could
no.
prepare myself
It's
for
not how
that
that
type of fight.
works. No, no, no. There's
You just
there's
have to
no.
beat
This
yourself
no
down.
matter how many times you get kicked, no, no, you're not gonna prepare yourself for that shit. You're not. You gotta prepare yourself to get out the way because no matter how many times you get hit, it's still gonna hurt. There's people I fucking train with. I don't even want to hold pads for them on fucking leg kicks. I don't even want to feel that because it's a different level of power. So obviously these are people that aren't even pros. So imagine the people who are professionals just cracking at you with those leg kicks. Anyone out of that team of Factory X, man, watch your fucking legs because
Well,
they're coming.
sometimes to get through pain, you got to go through more pain. So, or you could just avoid it by just not getting kicked in the legs. But that is
Mhm.
easier said than done. But it's just, man, when you got to fight, like when you get that call, whoever it is that you're fighting him next, man. Good luck, brother. I'll be cheering
Man,
for you, but I'd be scared to watch it, let alone be in the same octagon. So
whew,
shout out to whoever is fighting Jonathan Martinez next. Obviously, all these guys are killers, but man, I getting kicked in the legs, man. Oh, especially like right next on the side of the knee or right above the kneecap. Oh God, the
it's
fear
so
I
bad,
already have.
so bad.
It's so devastating, long term and short term on your career.
Shout out to Benoit Saint Denis. I just hope we get to see more guys just say, "Fuck it, I'm going all out with these leg kicks. Stop me if you want, right? But I'm gonna keep on throwing it until you decide it's enough, and try to change the phase of the game." But with all that being said, I think another situation where it's just a nightmare to get the call when you look at the opponents and you see that it's one of your dynasty fighters going head to head against one of my dynasty fighters. That's a call you don't want to get when Chris's dynasty player is on the other side. Because goddamn, Michelle Pereira fucking sparked out Andre Petrovsky. I did not expect that one, man. I did not expect such a one-sided fight, but goddamn, the dude looked lightning fast at middleweight.
Yeah, I'm glad you can enjoy this moment because I liked Petrovsky in his last fight. So this is one of the
Me
first
too.
times
Me too.
for the fans listening here. This is one of the first times that we have had a moment where a fighter that we have picked is now coming into fruition here, is now coming into our dynasty picks for this next one. So he had picked Michelle Pereira for this upcoming card, and I already had Petrovsky, and I knew because Petrovsky was a late fight replacement. And I remember going into this going, "Oh no." Especially with Pereira was already huge at welterweight. He was already a big guy there, and he looked even bigger. Obviously
Yep.
as a middleweight. And man, watching that fight over, I fell for Petrosky in that because even though the punch that landed didn't look the cleanest of all punches ever thrown, it still knocked Petrosky on his ass and just completely sent him to a new realm mentally. Because as much as it didn't look so clean and look like, oh man, no, how is he down from that? Like you couldn't have that argument. It just shows how strong Pereira really is, and the fact that it didn't even look like Petrovsky was really trying to find a way up. He was just trying to find his wherever he was first, and then the ground and pound finished him off. It was as quickly as the knockdown happened was how quickly the fight ended. So
Mhm.
Pereira's a mean machine when it comes to that middleweight division. So that was a great fight for him. I would love to be more happy for him, but I was still very upset with the fact that he was supposed to fight Wonder Boy a couple
Mhm.
cards ago, and that didn't end up happening. So I do love Pereira now being in this division and not missing weight, hopefully. And I as much of a loss as this is for Petrovsky, I'm not overly heartbroken over it because I think he'll, taking a short replacement fight, it's not going to ruin his stock, all too much. And I'm excited for his fight as well.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree with you more. I think this was just caught him, right? Just caught him. I think a lot of the stuff we said as far as how the fight could have potentially played out still could have turned out to be true, right? If he got a chance to get a takedown, get to top position, test gas tanks, I think it would have been an interesting fight, man. But the dude looked lightning quick. That the right hand that landed was just filthy, right? Just an instant crack, instant drop, and the follow up strikes after that just were fast and furious, right? I think no matter what, it's kind of an IQ test, right? When you fight Pereira, I would encourage anybody to watch his fight with Tristan Connolly back Still can't believe that that's something that I watched, right? Like, shout out to Tristan Connolly doing the damn thing. After that fight, he showed up with a six pack because he was like, "Nah, I can't let the world down after that performance," and never quite looked as good as did in that fight again, despite that. So, the blueprint is out there on how to fight someone like Pereira. It's just a matter of can you get him to not be as pissed off as possible. Like, I think that's the game plan, right? Chip away at the anger of Michelle Pereira, and before you know it, you'll find yourself in a manageable fight. But when he's coming at you with a full head of steam, man, the guy is dangerous, and obviously got his way in this one. But I won't be surprised if we see him get out grappled in future fights or anything like that. I think this was kind of a coin flip scenario, and it just ended up on the terrible side for Petrovsky. But much when you look back at the odds from last week, you're like, shit, man, a little straight play on Pereira would have been nice. But we'll move on. Next up, the fight we'll never get to see at this point, the reason why, unfortunately, you were forced to only have 4 fights on your dynasty record instead of 5. Edgar Shirez versus, excuse me, Daniel Lacerda, part 2, was not able to happen as Lacerda was not medically cleared. Did you get the background? Do you know why he couldn't fight on the day?
I have not figured that out yet, but I'm gonna do it right now. But you know what
Okay.
is crazy is the fact that this is now the third time in 4 cards, or whatever you want to call this, fight nights, pay per views, all of them combined, that we have had a fight get canceled the night of, or the night before it's supposed to happen due to some injury or some sort of complications. And I hate when that happens, and I hate that now it's like I feel like every single week we're coming into an event, and all of a sudden something happens, and I hate seeing stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It definitely sucks. I don't know what the solution is. I really don't.
It's
But
nothing.
yeah,
What are you supposed to
literally.
do?
I mean, better detection, I guess, so that we don't end up on the fight week getting these fights pulled. But once again, hopefully everything is going fine for Daniel Lacerda. And at this point, just don't even book this fight again. It's fucking cursed. Move on. But
100%.
next up, you get to gloat. Cameron Simon, Christian Rodriguez, one that's for some reason people thought was close. I thought this was a pretty clear decision for Christian Rodriguez. Sucked that he can't make weight for whatever reason. This is the second time. He doesn't look like a big bantamweight, but the second time that he wasn't able to make weight for the division. I honestly thought that ended up playing a factor in this fight, if you ask me.
100%.
I think not
100%.
not having to drain yourself to that extent, you could tell he had a little bit of an extra gear that Cameron Simon didn't really have,
Oh yeah.
and would have loved to see this fight under the actual uh, normal circumstances. But of course, that's not the world we live in. So, shout out to those guys for doing the damn thing. I thought it was a great fight, no matter what. I thought it was a tactical yet entertaining back and forth fight, which you love to see. As a big fan of that side of the sport, there was a lot of times, especially as the fight went on, where I thought Cameron Simon was really getting the better of those exchanges. But it
Yeah.
was just hard to mount offense for a sustained period of time for both guys, but especially for Cameron Simon, man. Great performance for you, though, right? And your dynasty team. How'd you feel about that one?
Listen, as much as I will take the win here, I don't like when fighters miss weight, especially by that much. I
Mhm.
have a certain feeling when it comes to fighters missing weight, and how that whole thing plays out. But I think he missed it by 4 or 5 pounds, if I remember correctly. That definitely played a humongous toll when it came to middle of round two and the entire of round three. And I think even if I remember correctly, I believe even the announcers, the Bispings and Cruises of the world were saying, like, you could clearly tell, not having to drain yourself just those 5 pounds has a humongous effect on you. And it clearly showed Christian Rodriguez was much more awake, let's say, or much more able to fight 15 minutes than someone who had to drain the extra 5 pounds just to put it back on, and spend all that time getting releasing fluids to gain the fluids. And I love the fact that Cameron still gets obviously the fight purse plus whatever 30% of Rodriguez's money. um I like that for him. It sucks to see how much of an effect that really does play out, especially if you're someone who watches fights as much as the both of us do. You even more. You could clearly tell that not making weight. It's such a big amount, 4 or 5 pounds, like Christian Rodriguez did. Definitely plays a humongous factor here. So I feel bad for Cameron Simon. I hope it doesn't hurt his stock that much, but I thought Christian could have made weight, and I still thought he would have won this fight. And I'm glad he still did, because losing the fight while also missing weight is probably as the worst thing you could possibly get. So hopefully, whatever happens with Christian next, it shouldn't be uh, too great for him either. But I'm glad, and I'm happy with the win for my dynasty. I am worried though when it comes to him making weight. I think that's the third time he has made weight or had to have a second sort of weight in the last 5 fights. It seems like making 135 seems to be a problem for him, and I everyone has a leash when it comes to this game, and I don't know how many fighters miss weight 4 times and continue to stick around in the biggest promotion in the world. So
And it feels
I'm
like he
curious
has
to
to
see
get
what
it right,
happens.
right? It feels like
Has
he
to,
has to
right?
get it right because he's someone that I can't picture fighting at featherweight. Like
No,
he's
hell no,
tiny, he's
hell no.
tiny for bantamweight, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So it's a little bit of a strange one, but obviously health is wealth, and wishing nothing but the best, right? That's what matters, right? Fuck all this weight cut talk. At the end of the
You
day,
need a
health is what
nutrition
matters.
coach, if he doesn't
Yeah.
have one. I'm
Yep.
assuming he
You
does
need
have
one.
one, but you need a better one.
Yeah, for sure. Or at least a more
Get more of them.
balanced approach to your discipline. But next
Yes.
up,
Yes.
Death Taxes and Darren Elkins by decision, baby.
Woo.
How did we let this happen? Right? How did both of us let this happen? Of all the fights where we could have went, you know what? I'm looking at me when I say this.
Dude.
Fuck you. Of all the fights that I decided, hey, you know what? I'm gonna be a contrarian. I chose Alatang Haley over Darren Elkins. What the fuck is wrong with me? Can we start there? Well, how did we not see this? I mean, we mentioned it's a possibility, right? I remember mentioning that the possibility of this happening was very legitimate. But goddamn, how the hell did none of us pick Darren Elkins in the spot? This is the Darren Elkins spot. God damn it.
I know. I can't believe it. Watching that fight, because when I pick these fights, I'm picking in the moment, and then when I go into the fights, I don't remember half the people I choose, because I'm like especially because there's a lot of times where we're kind of picking right at the wire. Like I could see T.J. Brown taking this one. Oh, I could see Darren Elkins. If he gets his game and blah blah blah. Like we have that sort of conversation over and over again where we're convincing each other and ourselves on who and why we're picking them. And going into that fight, it was Elkins' fight the whole time. The ground game was awesome, man. I
Mhm,
loved it for Elkins. I go in the whole time thinking I picked him, and then obviously at the end realizing I didn't. But I got to give it to Brown, man. He's a dog too. There were times where
mhm,
even when he was getting his ass kicked the whole fight, he had a moment where he flipped it on Elkins. He spent a lot of energy doing it. He was trying to get up. He had gotten up. He was landing some nice clean shots. But Elkins was just a dog the whole time. He controlled it for the majority of the fight. But I got to give it to Brown, man. As much as it wasn't his fight, and he clearly wasn't fighting his fight there, but I got to give it to Brown, man. He had a lot of credit to him, but Elkins looked probably the best I've seen him in a minute, and really happy for him and what happens with him next. So that was an incredible fight for Elkins, and a decent performance for Brown there, and I love the dog in both of them.
Hell yeah, man. I talk all the shit about how we thought we this was the day he got old. He do look 10 times younger than Tony Ferguson out there. Just got to throw that out there. But next up, Tainara Lisboa versus Ravenna over Oliveira. I thought Ravenna had an amazing third round and honestly made it an exciting fight because of that. But before then, I love this fantasy pick for me, man. I'm loving my dynasty team right now and the way that it's building because I think she's going to be a main fixture in this division. Do I think she screams top five right now? Probably not. But there's enough people in this division to make your way up and look great on your way doing it. And I thought she had a complete performance against a game opponent, right? Someone that we're going to see more of in the UFC, and I think is actually going to get some wins. So shout out to Ravena Oliveira, Tainara Lisboa, though, the star of the show. How did you feel about that one, Sean?
As good as that round 2 was, that round 2
Mhm.
has told me everything I needed to see, and um, Lisboa was absolutely dominant, and those are one of those where obviously it's never going to be a 10-8, but if you looked at it statistically, if you watched it, 50 times over, you could start convincing yourself on how much of a lopsided, fight or lopsided round that was. And
Mhm.
Lisboa looked incredible. It was one of those, especially like you just said, that I know I'm gonna regret when it comes to Dynasty in about a couple months when I see her again. And Lisboa is definitely building up to be something great. But I still like Ravenna.
Yep.
I do. I think that she can turn this around. I like her prospect as a prospect. I like her stock still. And while this is Lisboa's time at the current moment, I'm not you know shying away from picking Oliveira again.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I thought her stock went up in that loss as well with the way she bounced back in round three. But next up, Terrence McKinney, Brandon Marotte. I am honestly shocked that none of us have Terrence McKinney on our dynasty team at this point. Must have been the third time he's fought since we started the damn thing. But uh,
Hey,
is he in the running for the most dangerous 30-second fighter in the UFC. Like the
hey, might
dude is
be, bro.
insane, bro. In that first 45-second window of the fight, man, that the way that he landed that knee was so effortless, right? Knew that he stunned him with the shot beforehand and knew he would be forced to sort of pull back because of it. And then just nails him with a perfectly timed knee. I had to look at this one back a couple times because I'm like, how the fuck did he even know he would be there? Like I had to watch it a couple times. Clearly, man, the dude is just so dialed in and knew how good he hit him with the first shot to be confident enough to arc the knee that way. Man, that was a special knockout as far as timing and just athletic ability. Terrence McKinney, fucking dangerous guy to fight, man. Don't talk shit about, oh, he gasses after this amount. Hey, you got to force him to get there, right? And there's a lot of guys clearly that can't make it past the first couple of barrages, man. The dude is an animal.
Bro, he's 4 fights this year. I wouldn't be shocked if I see a fifth one.
Yep.
I think this dude is out of his mind. He's been in the UFC for 9 fights now, if you include the Contender Series, and
Yep.
every single one ends in someone getting knocked the hell out or choked the hell out. So he's one of those guys you got to stop putting on these Hellscape cards, and you have to start putting him on a prelim on a big card like a Madison Square Garden type card, because that will bring in the crowd. He's gonna obliterate someone in 30 seconds, or he's gonna gas himself out in about 60 seconds to the point where he's choked out. So he it's been with the I always forget these guys' names because we talked about this 3 different times before. The Bonfim fight and the other fight he had where he lost, by
Nazim
rear naked
Sadikov.
choke. Nazim, thank you. I always forget Nazim's name. That's where that happens, where he goes so ham for a full round, all of a sudden he starts to gas out, and it's not a good look. But then you have the Mike Greenan fight, and then you have this one against Brendan, where it's just now you're fighting Terrence's fight, and when you're fighting Terrence's fight, you better start sleeping, singing your lullabies, thinking about the sheep, hopping over the fence, whatever you have to do to prepare yourself going to sleep quick, because it's happening. It's coming soon. And Terrence McKinney really is a crazy person, man. He's one of those guys where I absolutely love when he's on a card, because I know that if the fight I'm waiting for that's after his is coming, I know I'll be there in about 5 minutes, because this fight will end in about 30 seconds. Because Terrence is an absolute monster, a dog, and I love what he did again. He's gotten hit twice in the last 2 fights. He's gotten hit 10 times in the last 3 fights. So it just shows how little he takes damage, and how much he's just fucking throwing and doing whatever he can to get out of there. And I also believe he was trying to watch that, Dylan Dennis, Logan Paul fight because it was happening at the exact same time. And I think, he was trying to be like, man, I see Dylan Dennis walking out. I got to get out of here. Let me knock this guy out in 20 seconds so I can go and, catch up by round one. So, you know what? It was a fantastic performance for
I
McKinney.
hate you.
And I look forward to seeing him in about 2 months whenever he takes another fight and seeing that fight end in about 90 seconds.
I contemplated starting this show as if we were going to be doing a breakdown show on that Misfits card. Like I
I'm
contemplate
up for it.
as I was doing the breakdown, not that I actually was going to do it, but as I was doing the intro, I was like, imagine I just start like hype as if we're going to be doing a full like recap of the Misfits card instead of the UFC. Like I literally was about to do it, and then I'm like, not worth. But yeah, it was only a matter of time until that fight got brought up, and I won't be surprised if he was like, "Yeah, let's get to the fucking back. We gotta find out who is gonna win the battle of the creepy nudes that I found on the internet." Such a strange storyline and so
Yes.
weird what people respond to, right? Once
So
again,
glad
talking
that's
about
over, and I hope I never see another Misfits. I never watch one. I would never pay for that crap, but the fact of how much people were buying into and were so into this nonsense of Dylan Dennis, who is the keyboard king of trolling, and then Logan, who is not a good person but pretends to be, is I think that's what it was. You grew both of them. You hate so much, but you had to love someone, and the fact that Dylan makes it as ridiculous as he does, people hate Logan so much they started to like Dylan, and no one likes Dylan. So it's just I'm that's the last time I'm gonna mention the
yeah,
Misfits card
please,
because
please,
I
it's
can't
over.
stand what they turned boxing into. I hate it so much, and I hope I never see anything remotely close to this YouTube boxing nonsense again
Hey,
at this caliber.
it's one little corner of the boxing world. Boxing is
No, no,
fine. I
no, it's
promise
not.
boxing is
It's
fine.
not.
I
No,
just
it's
I
not.
hate that this
Because
is what people enjoy the most. But go ahead. Yeah, yeah. Give me your take.
because in the casual standpoint of what fans watch now, because everyone's a casual and everyone's a hater first, everyone focuses more on this crap more than what real boxing is. I would say that the standing population of who watches these Misfits cars are around 10 years old to maybe 28. That's the newer generation of
That's an
boxing
amazing
fans.
demographic.
100% for Misfits, it is. But you have to bring in a new generation all the time. Every 5 years you have to bring in that new generation. I don't want that new generation doesn't give a shit about the up and comers of the real boxers out there.
I
Nobody
disagree with
cares.
that. I disagree with that.
I disagree with you for disagreeing with that because
Hey, Keyshawn Davis.
everyone
Hey,
cares.
Jerome
You know what?
Dennis. These are
I
all
want you to
legends
ask
coming up.
ask 10, 15-year-olds who those guys are who you're mentioning. Who are the next 5 guys who you think are title contenders? No one will say a goddamn
Hey,
thing.
we could do
But
the same thing with the UFC. You
if
know
you
that, right? We could be like,
100%,
hey,
100%,
ask these guys if they know Conor McGregor or if they know who Ikram
100%.
Aliskerov is, and most guys are gonna know Conor.
Yes, 100% there. But you could still get these kids to be like, you know who Dustin Poirier is? Do you know who Justin Gaethje is? Do you still know who Khabib was, and you know who Gamrot is and Fiziev is? Maybe some people won't know Gamrot and Fiziev, but they'll know the up and comers, the guys who were recently there, the guys who even just fought. Like people know who Triple G is, but if you ask who Triple G fought before he fought Canelo, no one will have any idea. Everyone knows who KSI's brother is. I don't remember his name, but everyone knows who that kid is and who he's fought the last 2 times. No, it just I hate that boxing has become such a joke to the casual fans because I love boxing. I love it, but focusing on this YouTube boxing 6 round nonsense
Hear me
and
out. Hear
having
me out.
people
You ready? You ready?
have.
I need a hot tag right now. I'm sorry. I'm not even gonna let you finish. Okay?
All right,
'Cause I get
take it
where you're
away,
coming
buddy.
from. I get where you're
Take it
coming from.
away.
I think this is two different audiences entirely. I think,
Uh,
if anything, these young casuals are now being introduced to boxing in a way that could get them used to and excited for actual fights. Nobody watched this and thought these were actual competitive fights. If you showed up to this event trying to watch competitive fights, you've done yourself a disservice. So I think, hear me
but what
out.
are you paying the money for then?
These people, I mean, the characters and the pomp and
You're
circumstance
paying hundreds of
and the
dollars for a
war.
character?
Hey, I didn't, but
Oh my
clearly that's what
god!
sells. You We just talked about that's what
You're
sells
gonna
no
pay
matter what the sport is.
$55 for a pay per
UFC,
view about? But
UFC or
okay, but
boxing.
they
That's what sells.
fight. They actually
These
fight.
guys actually fought as well. Did you see Salt
If the
Poppy get knocked
UFC is
out?
gonna headline CM Punk, no one's buying that.
Hey, they did once. He was the co-main event, and
Okay,
that
he
sold,
was not
baby.
the co-main.
Cleveland,
He was the main card. He was the first fight on the main card.
Cleveland,
Okay,
Believeland.
all right, I get that. That fight came and went, and people realized in that moment what an absolute disaster that was. Never do that again. But in this world, it's so backwards where they see absolute garbage fighting and they go, "Man, I can't wait to see that again. That was awesome. I loved watching him on YouTube, who has
That
nothing to
You
do
know
with
what this
boxing. I can't
is?
wait to do it again."
Because it has such a big profile, this is regional boxing. If you watch regional this is exactly
Ugh,
what it looks
the
like.
regionals
It
would
looks like
beat their
two
ass.
two guys that are fucking lost, right? And trying to figure it out. I agree. This is not a quality product. I agree with you
It's horrible.
100%. But it's two different demographics entirely. I don't think boxing is doomed because the young boxing audience only loves this. If anything, for unanimously, all actual boxing fans hate this the way you do. So in my
Yes.
eyes, it's just a lot of casuals that never would have watched boxing in the first place get their foot in the door, and hopefully these big fights like boxing has been able to deliver this year can continue to rope in some of those casuals. But I don't know how we got here. I love it.
No, no,
Next up,
and first, wait, whoa, 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 whoa! Don't cut me off here, all right? Listen, I agree with you, but the reason that is we're even at this misfits, the fact that this even exists, is the fact of how much boxing has disintegrated over the years compared to what it once used to be. So throwing in a bunch of YouTubers who should never be in a ring and having them talk keyboard nonsense to each other for 6 months before a fight is so ridiculous that that's what people are buying into now over what boxing used to be. I was the biggest fan of boxing. I used to love boxing, but it broke my heart, especially what how rigged boxing had become as well. That was a whole nother argument there. It's a lot of rigged stuff that happens in boxing, and maybe it's not as much as it used to be, but
still
I
is.
just hate even with the you would never see that in the UFC. You will
You
never
see it all the
see.
time. You see
No, you don't.
shitty
You will
incompetence.
never
You see
see a
shitty judges.
Misfits
It's the same
card where
commissions.
there's 50. Okay, but you will never see a pay-per-view event with a bunch of YouTubers doing MMA. You'll just
Have
never
you
see it.
seen Fight Circus?
No, thank God, because
Oh,
it
you
doesn't
need
exist
to.
to the
It
rest of the world.
exists. It exists,
No, no,
brother.
obviously everything exists. There's people who fight blindfolded with one arm. Of course it
Exactly.
exists. It's out there, but it's
It's
not nobody
degeneracy.
cares. Yeah,
I'm a
nobody
degenerate. I'm a
cares.
degenerate fight fan, baby. I will show
Yes,
up.
you are. Yes, you are. And you're a diehard at that. I'm just saying, when you're talking about the casual list of the world, the casual fans of the world, nobody
Mhm.
cares about these YouTube stars fighting in MMA. No one's gonna care if Logan Paul goes to Dylan Dennis and says, "I'm gonna fight you in MMA," because everyone knows Dylan's gonna beat the shit
I
out of him
disagree.
now. I think it'll
More
draw.
people would care about that than this last UFC
Hold
card.
on. Oh, well, obviously, yes, obviously. Nobody. There was a 50 people who show up to the fucking thing because it's
Yeah.
on the. It's at the apex. But yes, I think it'll sell in the beginning, but no one will care for the long term. Obviously, people will buy in, but because nobody's gonna want to really watch what the hell's about to happen, it sounds amazing at first because Jake Paul's the one who created this monster of taking these MMA guys who have no lick of boxing experience, but just the MMA style, and just beating them up because he's a YouTuber. It's like, wow, YouTubers beating up MMA stars, MMA champions, MMA legends. How could this be? And then it turns into YouTubers fighting YouTubers, YouTuber fighting keyboard warriors, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. I can't stand this nonsense. I was a little bit with it when it was Tyron Woodley versus Jake Paul because I've seen Tyron Woodley throw the same overhand right his entire career, and I just say, hey, maybe if he lands one of those, it's a different story. But it's a different story when you go from fighting and training for MMA to learning how to box when you've never done it and you're 40 years old. That's a completely different game. But then you get to see how different it is. You know what? I don't even want to keep talking about this because this is nonsense. I'm talking about a sport that's not real. I can't stand it. I don't want to ever see it. I will never watch it, pay for it, any of it because it's so stupid. I don't care if I'm a hater. I'll never, ever, 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 ever get invested or involved in it ever.
I love it. I just at this point you poke and prod just to get these kind of reactions out of you,
That's
and
what
I
I do.
fucking love. I
Yeah,
love the fire. I love the fire
I have the fire tonight.
coming straight from the soul. Yeah, coming straight from the soul. That's must be why I'm so damn hot over here.
Yeah,
Just you just spitting flames today, which I love. Okay, let's get back on track. Irina Alexieva. I get to gloat. You know what I'm saying? I get to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
just a little
You
bit.
take this one. You take this one.
Arena Alexieva uh, comes up short against Melissa Dixon. A lot of the way this fight played out was exactly how I laid it out. So shout out if you wanna check my thoughts before the fight, check that out. Arena looked dynamic though. Like I thought there was a lot of times where she did hurt Melissa. Obviously had her gushing from her nose since the first round. Literally, had to go through hell to get it. And there was a lot of dicey moments too with the random rolling for knees and a lot of the funky stuff she does on the ground. This was a fun little scrappy fight, despite what I thought should have been a very unanimous outlook on who won. I think Arena deserves credit for being a fun action fighter. At the same time, I think she leaves a lot to be desired as far as just putting herself out there on a platter to be countered and hit by her opponents. But with all that being said, Sean,
Yeah, I
what
get it.
went wrong?
Oh yeah,
What went wrong?
everything went wrong. You know what the thing was is that it was one of those where Irina, like you said, very fun fighter, and had her moments, right? Had some moments where I actually thought, okay, this is where start pulling away. This is the oh, here we go. But I felt Melissa. This was Melissa's fight from the beginning. I felt that this was her octagon. That she was controlling it, and I felt even I was kind of with Chris Lee here because I remember he was the one who picked all 3 rounds for her for Melissa. I actually was
Mhm.
with that, and you could argue Irina won. What round was it? That could have won 1 round. Can't remember which round it
Round
was.
two,
I think
probably.
it was
Yeah.
round 2. But it's round 2 maybe. Um, but I still firmly believe that this was Melissa's fight the whole time, and that hurt because it's one of those where you know that you didn't pick the right opponent, and your opponent picked the right opponent, and you're just like hoping and praying that something goes wrong for you to something to go right for me. And it's like being a fan of a team sport. You're just hoping and praying your team can turn it around, wake the fuck up, and turn this whole ship around. But it never happens, and you just watch 15 minutes of pain and misery. And that's what ended up happening for Irina and for me. So I enjoyed that. Thank you, Irina. It was brutal, and I hope I do like Irina's game though. I'm not shitting on her here. I want her back quickly as possible to forget this loss because I think Irina, like you said, is a very fun fighter, and I think she's still got plenty left in the tank, obviously, but plenty left to do in this game. And I hope that we can see her bounce back. I know I say that a lot, but I think she can do a lot more than what she showed on Saturday night, and I want her to come back as quick as possible. But shout out to Melissa, good for her.
Yeah. I don't think any of these ladies are going to be barnstorming through the division.
No,
But fun action fighters for sure. And Melissa Dixon, just workhorse out there. Just I was gonna say workman like, but obviously she's a work woman. God damn it, we got to be PC on this show. But just I love when someone puts their hard hat on and just fucking goes to work, right? Regardless
yes,
of what their opponent goes out there trying to do, to just fully bore on implementing their game. And if anyone felt that way, it was also Chris Gutierrez earlier in the night against Alatang Hey Lee. Amazing performance. Had that leg looking like a little alien egg was about to pop out.
This was a nice
Sean,
one.
tell me, how'd you feel? Yeah.
You know what the thing was is that I feel like you kind of got the last laugh here because I felt really good going into this one. Just for 15 minutes later, for you to get the last laugh in the next fight. So I felt really good. Like I said, it felt like a team sport where it was like, all right, I had a great first half here. Look at this, I'm winning. This is great. I love it. Chris Gutierrez absolutely dominated. I felt that he was way better the entire card, the entire card, the entire fight, and I this is exactly why I picked him. This is exactly why I said in the preview show. I just felt that this was Gutierrez's time. I felt he was a complete mismatch for. I'm not saying his name, but I just felt like it was it was made for Gutierrez. This was a fight made for Gutierrez to win, and it worked out as perfect as I thought it would. And then obviously the next fight we just talked about is what happened. So I went from overhyping myself to disappointing myself. But keeping it on this fight, this was awesome. This is exactly what I expected, and I don't know. See, this is what happens. This is what I do after a loss or a win. I'm already picking and thinking about who I think Gutierrez and whoever I pick should fight next and when. And with this type of masterful performance, I don't really know what he can do right now, whether if he can rush to get an opponent quickly or if they're going to kind of slow him down. But I want, I would love for Gutierrez to fight soon, but I don't know because of the fact he's still very relatively young in this UFC world. Um, I don't know what they're going to do with him next. And I was kind of hoping to ask you because after I watched this fight, I was thinking to myself, like, what is next for Gutierrez? He's been around for 5, 6 years, right? 6 years, 7.
Yep.
So, like, what happens for Gutierrez now, being basically one of the first fights on a Hellscape card? 6, 7 years to get to that point. It's not what you want, but we're here now. And what happens with Gutierrez next?
Yeah, man. All great questions. Obviously, this was a step back after his last performance against Pedro Munoz. I think he ends up somewhere in that top 15 again. I thought he looked phenomenal, right? So those are all good things. And it's a little weird, right? Because you got teammates in that in your division in the top 15 as well, right?
Yeah,
So you kind of got to navigate that properly, and I think that's a little bit of what's slowing him down too. But no doubt he's deserving of a top 15 fight. And another situation where we're looking at the board, and I'm like, how the fuck did nobody pick Chris Gutierrez for their dynasty league? Kind of crazy that both of us left him on the board there because obviously no matter what the dude looks phenomenal and has great process, which is obviously one of the things that stick out to me as a fight fan. So I thought, like you said, great performance. Little bit of a rough one for Alatang Haley. The dude is fucking nails, right? He's coming forward no matter what. But feels like you got to sell out and figure out a way to stop things from happening to you. Because if you don't, it becomes to a certain point, like it did in this fight, right, where you're just trying the same shit over and over again and getting the same result right over and over and painfully so
yeah,
good luck to Alatang Haley if he gets another shot in the UFC. I think he deserves it. I think he's an action fighter and someone that they would love to send out there to one of those random UFC Asia moments because I'm sure at some point we're going to be headed back to that side of the world. But with all that being said, we move on to our final fights. Emily Ducote gets the win over Ashley Yoder. I'm not gonna lie, this fight kind of sucked.
yes.
I'm not gonna lie to you, this fight kind of sucked. Shout out to Emily Dakota for doing what she had to do to get the win. I would like to not speak about Ashley Yoder again on this show, if possible.
You know what? I agree with you here. Not my favorite fight, and I hate when cards start off with fights like these. And I'm not, great win for Emily. I was obviously first fight of a Hellscape card is never the most exciting fight of all time. It's never going to be, but I did expect a little more, and I felt Ashley Yoder did not bring it for me. Like, yeah, obviously, if you look at the stat sheet, it looks significant enough, but landing at a 37% pace and failing on the takedowns. It's just I wanted more, and I do feel it was a little closer than I wanted it for Emily, but I had it 30-27 at the end of it all. But um, granted, not what I wanted to see from both these fighters, but I'm glad Emily still did get the win and continues to increase and move forward in her career. So I'm excited for what's next for her after getting rid of that 2-fight losing streak.
For sure. So at the end of the night, both Sean and I in our head to head picks finished off at 84-49, 1-1, which I think is an awesome record, right? Anything above 500 is great. But slowly but surely, we're creeping up. Who knows? We might be able to double up our wins over our losses soon. So I'm loving the direction we're going as far as the picks and how we've been able to make things work. As far as Dynasty went, obviously things were a little hairy. Sodiq Yussuf not able to get the dub for me. Cameron Simon not able to get the dub for me, but Tainara Lisboa and Michelle Pereira pulled through. While on your end, Jonathan Martinez came up big time, but obviously he was fighting Adrian Yanez, so that even things out a little bit for you at least. Of course, Christian Rodriguez came up big for you. Edgar Chairez unfortunately wasn't able to fight, so that one didn't count towards anything. And then Petrovsky gets laid the fuck out ski. But 2-2 on the official books for both of us right now. I've got a 3-point cushion sitting at 29, 15 and 1, while you sit at 26, 18 and 1. So that is our recaps. That is our standings for Dynasty and head-to-head pick'ems. Got a lot to look forward to, right? UFC 294. I can't wait to do that preview show with you and look forward to what is an awesome lineup of fights, man. I was looking at this card earlier. We've been so hype about 295 and 296. This is the low-key banger,
This
right?
is
That
a
we
this is
haven't
a
been
perfect prequel. It's a perfect
exactly that we
prequel.
haven't been hyped about. Let there be light. That we got light shutting off here. It's amazing, but you'll love to see it.
Automatic
Before
timer.
you know it, we will be back on with UFC 294 previews. But until then, Sean, let the people know where they can find you.
Ooh, if you're still around, you can find me at Sean Negron 26 on Twitter and bsreports.org. Uh, you can find me there. And, if you ever want to get started with your sports career, like Chris is going to do eventually, you can reach out to me anytime and I will help you any way possible. I don't care what the job is, what you want to do, where, who, when, and whenever. I will do it and I'll help you.
Yes, sir. He is a man of many talents who is willing to do whatever. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and TikTok, Negron MMA, Chris Negron underscore on Instagram. Most importantly, OTS Media Co. on YouTube, OTS Media on all social media platforms. We'll catch you guys next time. And until then, remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you're going through anybody, make sure you ask their significant other first. We'll catch you. Peace.